And I'm here today for the Iowa Falls Historical Society because I'd just like to discuss with you briefly preserving historical media and sharing it. Let's start with old newspapers. I have an old newspaper here. This paper is from the 1950s. Newspapers are an interesting source of local history, and people like myself enjoy reading them, and we take pictures of them to share online. Originally, old newspapers were not meant to preserve history. Newspaper publishers were for-profit companies, and they were trying to earn a profit while sharing the local news. Because they were trying to make a profit, they didn't use a high quality of paper. The newsprint they used was fairly inexpensive because they knew it was eventually probably going to be used by somebody to line a bird cage or something like that after they got done reading it. So it was never, the newsprint was never meant to preserve history. And we have people now and then that have collected old newspapers and they want to donate them to the Historical Society. We usually tell them we're not interested unless the paper is extremely rare and it has some interesting article that we want to do a story on. Because most of the information in these old newspapers is available to us or available to other researchers in some other form. Somebody somewhere along the line has already put most of the significant news in the paper somewhere digitally where it can be scanned. So usually we're not really interested in these. We've already got a pretty good sized collection of old newspapers. So that's kind of what newspapers are about. Let's go on to something a little more interesting. Some people have 16 millimeter or 8 millimeter or what they call Super 8 millimeter film. It's not real common, but people do have film. A film like this, it usually comes in a little reel, like so, and it will usually have about 50 feet of film on there. So it'll run maybe, you might have a little 5-minute film on there, and it'll be of all different qualities. Sometimes it's totally blurry, but sometimes it's a pretty good little film. However, there are several drawbacks about using film. If you visited the Met Theater recently or had a tour of the backstage and their projection room, you will notice that they don't have standard projectors in there anymore. They have a digital setup which is used to project digital movies. So film is kind of on the way out. One of the drawbacks of film is it slowly decomposes over the years. In addition, you have to have a projector to show this film. So our local historical society, if you had a film and you know for certain that there's something quite historic on that, we might be interested in it, but usually we prefer to have these converted first to a better format, and I'll discuss that a little bit later. One thing I should mention too is that it's been estimated that over 90%, and let me repeat that, over 90% of the films, all the films that were ever made in Hollywood or elsewhere prior to 1920 are now gone. They have decomposed, disappeared, or what have you, but they're gone. It's estimated that 75% of all films made before 1955 are gone. So that gives you an idea of how hard it is to preserve film. So if you have a little film, you want to think about converting that to another format just for your own use or before you donate it. Don't donate these to the Historical Society and expect the Historical Society to fork out the $40 or whatever it takes to convert this, because it would take a special film for us to want to do that. So let's go on here. This might take some of you back. This is a cartridge audio tape. Basically what some people would call a 8-track tape. Although this one here, I'm not sure it's an 8-track, but it's a cartridge tape. This is a tape that came from KIFG radio once upon a time, and we have a whole set of these. We've probably got 40 or 50 of these. And most of them just have a little short clip on them. They have an advertisement, or they are the opening of the day or the closing of the day with the national anthem and so forth. This one is evidently an advertisement. It says "Right Drug" on it. Now, we've got no way to play this. I'm thinking an 8-track player might play it, but other than that, something like this has historical interest or collector's value maybe, but as far as historical purposes, it's somewhat questionable. And if a person can't play it, you know, it's really not much good at preserving history. But it was a little step up from a reel-to-reel tape that people used to use. So that's a 8-track or a cartridge audio tape. Once again, if you've got a way to play that, and it's yours, you want to play that and get it recorded to a better form of media in the near future, and which I will be discussing later. The next step up in tape recording was the cassette tape. A lot of you probably still have cassette tapes. The advantage of them was they were mobile. You could play them in your car. So a lot of people maybe have home recordings on cassette tapes that they still listen to with a tape player in the house or in their car if they have a car that has a tape player anymore. But once again, outdated. It's not a good way to record interviews anymore. Some of you probably still have a VHS player or a VCR, video cassette recorder, in your home. This VCR tape right here says POW experience of M.L. Forsman, interviewed by Andersonville Prisoner of War Museum, 1993. Now we've got other interviews with Mr. Forsman, who was a POW, but this one is on a video cassette tape, so it's probably a different interview than what we have preserved digitally. For us to play this, we'd have to have a VCR to play this, and on the other VCR with a player on one side, and on the other side the DVD recorder. So we could play this and record it onto a DVD, and then we'd have it on a DVD, which is a digital video disc. But even if you have a VCR, if you have home video cassettes recorded that you would like to keep to share with other family members or Historical Society in the future, you should convert these, at least convert them to a DVD, and probably beyond that, because we're rapidly losing the ability to play these. And by the way, they decompose as well. That tape does not last forever. So once again, don't donate these to the Historical Society and expect the Historical Society to pay the $40 to convert them to a more permanent format that more people can watch. It's because it just gets to be expensive if you have very many to do. But like I said, a good one, really good one, would be worth it. from the video cassette player recorder, we have some little video cassettes like this. These are digital video cassettes, so it's a little different kind of a tape than what that VHS tape was. These record the information digitally, and they were used with a little small camcorder, camera recorder. Was pretty common back in the 1990s, about 35 years ago. And what people did, they recorded the film with the camcorder onto this little video cassette tape. And they could record, probably 60 minutes or so onto a little tape. And then they would take this tape and plug it into with their camcorder, plug it into their home computer, and upload this digitally into the home computer. And from there, they could edit it and do whatever they needed to do. If you have any home movies that are on these little digital videotapes, you want to get those into your computer as soon as possible and get them onto a different format as well. So it was a step up. It was digital recording, but it's still mechanical. It still has to be played. Along about the very late 1970s up through the mid 1980s, optical disc recording was developed. And that's when a lot of your video cassette tapes kind of went out of fashion and disappeared, and people began to record onto a laser red optical disc. And these discs, you could record just sound on them, or you could record sound and picture on them, depending on if you were using a camera or just a audio recorder. These discs have the advantage of they are digital, so they can be uploaded into a computer, and they're also very durable. They're not quite as permanent as we once thought they were, but they are still quite durable. So it was a good option for quite a while. The problem with these things are, even though they are digital and can be loaded into a computer, they're still mechanical. They have to have a player, and the player rotates this so the laser can read them before the information can be uploaded into the computer. And the problem is, computers nowadays are rapidly being developed that no longer have a disk drive on them. Even some of your notebook computers, if you look at some newer notebook computers today, they don't have the disk drive on them. If you go to the Barlow Library today, their computers there no longer have the disk-ROM drive like this. They've got another system, which I'll talk about here in a minute, for saving, storing, and uploading information. So if you are going to convert let's say you want to convert a videotape like this, and you think, well, this is a good option. Well, yes, this is a step up, but I would caution against it, because these are already on the way out. And if you're going to convert something, why convert something to something that's on the way out? So there's better ways of doing this now. If you make something like this, the person in the future may not have a DVD player to play this on. And I should mention too, a lot of times these homemade or home recorded DVDs won't play on everybody's player. So that's something to think about too. They may have a DVD player. The DVD player maybe won't play this. They may need a computer to play it, and they may not have a disk drive on their computer. So it's a step up. It's better than a videotape, but if you've got a better way of doing it, don't do it. The last thing I want to talk about as far as media, which is the current trend, is this little gadget right here. This is called a flash drive. Many of you have probably used this to get extra storage from your phone. You've downloaded pictures from your phone onto this. These little things are kind of the way to go right now. They have several advantages. One advantage is they're not terrible expensive. They come in many different sizes, and they're small is another advantage, and compact. A lot of them you can carry on your keychain or put right in your pocket. They are also very durable. So once you get stuff on there, it's pretty safe. And as I mentioned, they come in different sizes. You can get these that'll hold, maybe 4, 5, 6 full-length movies. So, or a lot of small, short videos. This one here has a little push button, which extends or retracts the plug. It is what we call a USB flash drive. Most smart TVs nowadays have a connector that will play a USB flash drive. Practically all computers, all digital devices do. And this is how the Barlow Library computers store information right now. Instead of going in there with a DVD, you go in there with one of these, and you can load files from this into their computer, or download them, upload them with this, and then download them onto someone else's flash drive. So you can make an infinite number of copies that way. So that is the trend now. The other advantage of these that I haven't mentioned is they're fast. Whereas the DVD, you put that into a disk drive, if you have a disk drive, it's got to turn that and read that information mechanically to load it into the computer. So it takes a little time to load that in there. These seem almost instantaneous. There's no mechanical wheel to turn or any reading. It plugs into the computer and it's electronic transfer of the information. So it seems, like I said, it seems almost instantaneous. So it takes a lot less patience to use these. You don't need as much time to preserve files with a flash drive. And then you can take that flash drive, you can take it, play it on someone's phone, someone's tablet, someone's computer. They can make 100 copies or whatever. Plus, it's easy to take information on a flash drive and upload it to the iCloud or the internet for sharing or for further preservation. So in other words, it's not just on this or on your friend's flash drive or what other flash drives you made. It's also in the internet, in the server computer of the internet. And to kind of sum up too, let's talk about servers and data centers. Data centers are kind of getting a bad rap in the news right now. People talk about how much electricity they use and property tax abatements or other things that people don't like. They call them urban blight, and they take up land or space that something else could be using. But without data centers, we would be in trouble. We want to be kind of careful, cautious anyway, about banning data centers, because we've become a paperless society, and every single thing that we store online is not just in the ether floating around in the air for your friend out in California to look at. It's on a computer somewhere in a data center that has a server that serves all these other computers. So every single picture you upload, video you upload, comments you might make on Facebook or YouTube, every story you share, everything, every email, this is all on a computer server in a data center. So we don't cut down as many trees for paper as we used to, folks. That's what the data centers are doing. If we were to do without data centers, for one thing, we would need probably a lot more space for file cabinets to store all this paper. So that's something to consider. And unless we are willing to pay higher fees to store our information, or maybe perhaps pay a fee to use Facebook or YouTube, before we start, unless we want to do that, before we go that far, we kind of want to work with these data centers a little bit. There's maybe ways that they can operate even more efficiently than they do, but we want to be awful cautious about banning data centers. So in summary, I'd just like to say a lot of you maybe have some interesting stories or family anecdotes, family history, local history, quite interesting or valuable items. And they're probably on older media because they were put on the best media they had at the time. Don't hesitate to update some of these things, particularly if you want to donate them, because preserving history is a never-ending battle. No form of history media is permanent, not even online. We can never be sure that someone won't come along and wipe our files away, or store our files in a way that they are very difficult for someone else to locate without some advanced searching techniques. So we always want to remember that it's a constant struggle to try to keep our media in a form that the next generation can look at and read. So we always want to remember that. I think that's about everything I have to say for today, so thank you.